My undergraduate degree was electrical engineering with a specialization on electronics design. So I designed what goes inside computer chips and the transistors that go into it. So that's what was my first degree, and my second degree was an MBA. So I studied business afterwards, mostly because I wanted to learn how to take some of my ideas of electronics design into business. At that time, I probably wasn't a conscious decision. I think it was more of I started electronics engineering mostly because I didn't get into my first choice. At that time, medicine was my first choice. I didn't get into it, so this was my backup plan. I enjoyed physics and math, so I decided I'm going to do electrical engineering. And then as I progressed through electrical engineering, I realized I actually enjoyed the complex math a lot more than I had imagined. I like physics and the physics struggles that happen in reality a lot more than I was imagining. And while I was still trying to get into medical school, I kept pushing my electrical engineering story, and that's how I ended up in electronics engineering. It was a bit of a random pathway of trial and error until I got to a place where, hey, I really enjoy this particular thing. In hindsight, I think the thing I've learned about myself in the last 15 to 20 years is I really like complicated problems. Right? If it's not complicated, I get bored relatively easily. And if you look at electronics engineering, I really enjoyed electronics engineering because very few people know how to do it really well, at least at that time. And it was really complicated problems where you're at the edge of physics, practical physics, and the reality of what needs to happen in the marketplace. And it makes sense in hindsight why I ended up in electronics engineering. At that time, it was a bit of a trial and error until I got to it. Okay, my first work experience was coming out of my first year of electrical engineering. Couldn't find a job. So I basically scavenged until I found somebody willing to pay me minimum salary to do something. And you're gonna laugh, but the first job I had was doing oil analysis, right? And it's funny, but if you imagine if you drive down anywhere in Mauritius or in major African cities, you have these big electrical transformers that when electricity comes in from the dam or from the mining coal mines, they actually come in and they need to get processed through these big, massive, maybe the size of this room, transformers that have industrial oil in there. But because there's electrical tension, oil eventually breaks down and you don't want that whole thing to blow up. So my job was to get these jars of oil and do analysis. I started at 5 in the morning every day and I finished at 3 in the afternoon, and all I did was take oil, pour them into little beakers, burn them, see their color, take a note, then take them and then smell it and see if there's smell. And yeah, by the end of the day, my clothes smelled of oil. Like all I could smell for like weeks was oil in my nose for weeks. That was my first job. How did it prepare me for my journey today? I think that was the first time I realized that there's dignity in every job, right? And that we tend to, and I aspire to become a CEO or an entrepreneur or a prime minister, but actually all the little things that get done invisibly in the back are as important, if not a lot more important than what I'm ever going to do, right? And that was my first big lesson where I got to learn that. The second big lesson I learned is, man, it may look like it's an easy job, but doing this day in, day out for 4 months was hard. Now you can imagine if I translate that to a janitor that cleans up after my mess, or the person who does the job I was doing full time, this is it. This is what they're gonna do for the next 2, 3, 4 years, every day, over and over. And that's in many ways a lot harder than anything I've ever done after that, right? I think that's what leadership has prepared me. That job has prepared me to be a better leader, because hopefully I'm a bit more humble for it, and I'm a bit more thoughtful that when I come up with these really great ideas or I make a big decision, that it actually affects somebody who actually doesn't have the most fun job, who is going to keep having to do what they're doing for me to be able to do all the other things I want to do. So entrepreneurship is hard. Right? We're very, very good at creating the narrative of the Steve Jobs and the Mark Zuckerberg and the Fred Swanekers of this world. But the reality of it is entrepreneurship is grunt work. Right? For 99% of entrepreneurs, they never make the front page of Forbes, they never make the front page, they don't write a book, we don't create this cult-like following for them. But entrepreneurship actually is the day-to-day hard work that people have to do. The kid that lives in Accra, who's finished his matric, who now is just running around selling fruits on the side of the road, and then in the evening cooking for his neighbors, and at night helping some other kid tutoring that, no offense, that's an entrepreneur. And it's not glamorous, right? And I think the advice I give to pretty much everybody who wants to be an entrepreneur is that effort that that kid in Accra, Lagos, Joburg, and I know kids like that I work with, is putting in is hard work, and they have to do it for survival purposes, right? Understand that the effort they're putting in is the effort that you will have to put in to build the next Apple or the next MTN of Africa or the next ALU of Africa. It's the grunt work every day, not the shiny, flashy stuff that happens that is important, that creates a new narrative around we can be entrepreneurs on the continent and we can be rebuilding this continent by us, with us, from us, right? But 90% of the work that Fred does, or 99% of the work Fred, for instance, at ALU does, is grunt work. It's document writing and talking to investors and worrying about running out of money and raising money and all that. It's hard work, and not all of it is glamorous, and actually pretty much very little of it is glamorous, right? And you have to be okay with that. You don't become an entrepreneur to make the front page of something. You become an entrepreneur because you care about building something and you're willing to put in that effort. And that's the advice, the sober advice I give to young people is not all of us will be front pages of anything, but we'll create jobs for other people and we'll build a business that hopefully sustains beyond our existence.